Hey there, everyone. In my Facebook Live today, I am going to talk all about sugar and how it really impacts our ability to lose weight or not. And I know it sounds obvious. Yes, sugar and carbs, they're going to cause you to gain weight. That's pretty obvious, but I want you to look at sugar and carbs in a different way. I'm going to explain that to you in this video, and it really might shed some light on why you're getting stuck with your weight loss goals. For those of you who don't know me, hello, my name is Kelly, and I help women who struggle with weight loss resistance to move past that weight loss resistance and get to their goal weight and lose the weight regardless of their situation. So I don't care if you have yo-yo dieted your whole life, if you have hormonal issues, if you have other medical diagnoses going on, if you're an overeater, a binge eater, regardless of your situation, I can help you get to your goal weight. Like I said, I am going to share with you kind of my insights on carbs and sugar, and it's probably some things that you've not maybe thought about before. So the first thing I want to start with is what I usually do when I talk to women is I usually ask them, why are you overweight? And one of the most common responses I get is they can't stick to their plan. They can't stick to their diet. They lose motivation. They are tired of failing and starting and failing and starting. And I ask them, why is that? Why can't you stick to your plan? And usually the answer is, well, you know, I have this sweet tooth. I've always had a sweet tooth, and I just need something sweet every day. Or maybe they will say something like, I'll do okay for a few days of staying off the sweets or the desserts, but then after 3 or 4 days, I give in and I have to have my sweets. And they kind of talk about it in a way that makes it sound kind of like this sweet tooth of theirs is kind of innocent and just kind of this almost kind of cute thing, because when you say sweet tooth, it sounds kind of innocent and cute. But it's actually really far from being innocent and cute. And I think that having that mindset about sweets and about your inability to overcome your sweet tooth, I think for a lot of women, that is what's keeping them stuck. So that is what I want to talk about today, and I'm just sharing this video onto some different pages here, so that's what I'm going to do really quick. And I want to offer you just kind of a different way, like I said, of looking at sweets and sugar. So I want to start off by saying, do any of you have like a coworker or a spouse who they really don't seem to care so much about sweets like maybe you do? So for example, maybe you have a coworker that has some packages of half-open or half-eaten packages of candy or potato chips in their desk drawer. And every single time they open their drawer, you see that same package of half-eaten M&Ms or half-eaten potato chips. And you think to yourself, how can they not just finish it? And you notice over weeks and months that package of M&Ms just keeps sitting there, like they've forgotten about it. How is it possible that they have forgotten about the M&Ms or the potato chips? Or maybe your spouse, maybe every time you get into their vehicle, you notice that they have a half-eaten bag of potato chips in their console. And you don't understand, how can they not just finish it? How can that bag of potato chips stay there for weeks and months and they not eat it? And if that is you, if that rings a bell with you, this video is especially for you. I can relate to this. I actually spent a long time kind of in this cycle. Like I couldn't understand why I always thought about sugar and carbs, and I thought there was something wrong with me, and I was jealous of people who could just kind of open up a bag of M&Ms or chips and just eat half of them and then just kind of forget about them, throw them in the back of the drawer, throw them in the back of the pantry and forget about it. And I wanted so bad to be that person. And so I would try different things, different diets. I would try to white knuckle it, and I just couldn't get my mind off of it. And I just seemed like I looked at carbs and sugar different than other people. And so what I want to tell you today is that through the research I've done and through kind of looking at my own situation and helping other women, I want you to know first and foremost that sugar and carbs, and when I say carbs, I mean the concentrated refined carbs, they have more similarities with drugs and alcohol than they actually do food. So they are more similar to a drug and alcohol than they are to an actual whole food. And when you can start to look at carbs and sugar that way, it can really help shed some light as to why maybe you can't stick with your diet or stick with your plan. So first of all, the reason I know this is because if you look at when they diagnose people who have drug or alcohol addictions, there is a list of criteria that one has to meet in order to be considered, addicted or have a substance abuse problem. And a lot of those criteria are listed out in the DSM-5 manual. And if you look at all of the criteria that needs to be met in order to be diagnosed with an alcohol or a substance abuse problem, if you replace the word drug or alcohol with carbs and sugar, it meets all of the criteria. So things, for example, are maybe you have a lot of shame and guilt, maybe you hide it from friends and family, maybe it's affecting all areas of your life, maybe you need more and more and more to get the same kind of high. And so this can really make sense as to why it's so hard to quit the carbs and sugar. Now, the only difference between the carbs and the sugar and the drugs and the alcohol is that society has completely normalized our addiction to sugar and carbs. So in fact, they have, society almost welcomes and encourages and feeds our addiction to sugar and carbs. So, that really can help us kind of understand, like I said, why it's so hard. Now, there's some people who can have carbs and sugar and they're just fine. They can have it every now and then and it's really no big deal and there's not a lot of emotion and drama around it. Just like many people can have a drink of alcohol now and then, and it's no big deal. It doesn't affect them. They enjoy it, but there's really no emotion or drama or mind racing involved with it. So I am mainly speaking to those people who seem to not be able to enjoy carbs and sugar in moderation, or seem to have a lot of emotion and a lot of heavy desire and problems with control around it. So that's kind of who I'm talking to here. So one thing about sugar and carbs that are also very similar to drugs and alcohol and nicotine is that they have done scans on people's brains after they've ingested like cocaine, and a certain part of their brain will light up. And after they've ingested maybe alcohol or nicotine, a certain part of their brain will light up. When you have sugar and carbs, that exact same part of your brain is lit up. So you are getting a huge dopamine hit just like you would with cocaine, with alcohol, with nicotine when you have carbs and sugar. And much like drugs, carbs and sugar, what they are is they're a very, very, very concentrated substance. So it's broken down into the smallest concentration that you can get, just like cocaine is, or just like nicotine is. It's concentrated into very, very, very potent drug. And so if you kind of look at if you look at when you eat a whole food, so if you have a steak or if you have bacon and eggs, yes, it's going to taste good and it's going to be pleasurable, but the dopamine is going to be very small. When you have the carbs and sugar, you are going to have a huge dopamine hit. So if you look at it like on a scale, let's say you have carbs and sugar, your dopamine is going to go to a 10, where maybe the steak or eggs or bacon might just be at a 5 or something like that. So if you come home from a long day of work and you're stressed, or whatever your emotion is that makes you think that you need to have these carbs and sugar, what it's going to do is it's going to solve all your problems, because your dopamine just went to a 10, and every problem that you have at the time is going to feel like it is just completely gone and it's taken care of and everything is awesome and you're going to feel great. So from here on out, your hot bath or your walk out in nature, or maybe spending time with your loved ones, maybe reading a book to your kid, maybe cuddling with your spouse, that doesn't even compare to the dopamine hit that you're going to get if you have carbs and sugar. So this is where sometimes we let our sugar, our sweet tooth, really ripple out into other areas of our life, and we don't even notice it. Or maybe we do notice it, but we're maybe just kind of feeling a lot of shame and guilt around it, or maybe a lot of denial around it, that we would rather sit there and have our ice cream or our dessert instead of taking the hot bath or reading a book to our kids. And so much like how drugs and alcohol affect and ripple out into other areas of our life. So what happens too when we are always turning towards carbs and sugar is we are really having some very negative side effects. So it's like a net loss. So for example, if you if you go on a walk, you're doing something pleasurable and there's really no negative side effects. But when you eat sugar and carbs, yeah, it solves the issue in the moment, but the net loss or the side effects from it are so much greater. So not only are you gaining a lot of weight, you are getting sick, you are having a lot of low body self-confidence. Now you are also, as time goes on, you are also letting it ripple out and affect maybe your time that you could be spending with a spouse or a loved one, or you are maybe isolating yourself more. You aren't going out in public as much because you don't really like the way you feel or look in your clothes. And also, every single time that you're turning towards those sugar and carbs, you are checking out. You're checking out of your life. You are you're leaving through the exit door, you're checking out, and so you are not able to live life fully, and you aren't able to evolve and live a fulfilling life that is evolving closer and closer to who you want to be. So if this is you, do not beat yourself up. Instead, I think it's actually really exciting news, because this might give you some answers as to why you can't stick with your plan and why it's so frustrating for you, because you aren't looking at it in this way. It's kind of like if you had an alcoholic and you just printed off some plan for them on how they are supposed to drink throughout the day, and you expect them to not be alcoholics anymore. So maybe you just like a meal plan. So we wonder why our meal plans don't work. Well, it's just like an alcoholic. If you printed off a PDF online on a alcoholic plan for them, and it said something like drink water at 8 o'clock and drink tea at noon, and this evening, instead of having your beer, why don't you just drink sparkling water? And then you expect them to be able to overcome their addiction by some plan like that. But that's how we look at weight loss when we are having sugar and carb addiction. We expect us just to print off a meal plan and then everything be okay and be able to lose weight. And then when it doesn't work, we beat ourselves up. So that is how I started looking at my issues when I was trying to kind of get over this obsession with sugar and carbs, and I kept falling off the diet or falling off the wagon. And so what I wanted was that what I discovered was that this is what I knew didn't work. I knew that this whole eat in moderation thing was not going to work. A lot of people say, just have a little sweet every single day, and then that will help you. Hey, Charmaine. And if any of you have questions, please ask them. And this is the time to ask. And I can't see all of your questions. Oh, there we go. So Charmaine has a question. When I tell women I don't eat sugar or carbs, they always respond with, life is too short for me to do that. I love sugar too much, or I can't give up bread. Right. To me, life is too short to put so much value on something that is going to make my life even shorter and ultimately makes me feel like crap. Charmaine, I love this. And this brings up a really good point that I wanted to talk about was, if you feel like that you can't live life without sugar and carbs, you can't imagine your life without sugar or carbs, or if I told you that you couldn't have them ever again, if that scares you, or if you can't think of anything in your life better than sugar and carbs, or if the highlight of your day is sugar and carbs, then you need to work on your life. Because that is not a fulfilling life if you can't think of many things better than eating sugar or carbs. So this video is especially for you, and this is definitely something that I can help you with if this is you. I totally agree with you, Charmaine. I know there's a lot of people out there. And here's the other thing I wanted to say. I've lived life both ways. I've lived life where I feel like I really needed the carbs and sugar in order to be happy. And then I've now kind of swung to the other side, far of the other side, where I never, well, I don't want to say never. I can't remember the last time that I ate carbs and sugar. And my life is way better now. It's way more fulfilling. And so you can go from depending on them to the far other end too. It is possible for you. And so thanks for bringing that up. I love that. So what I knew that was true for me is that the eating in moderation wasn't going to work. I know it works for some people, but if you are really struggling with the carb and sugar kind of addiction, you can't stop eating it. The eating in moderation is one thing that might be keeping you stuck. The other thing that I knew wasn't going to work for me is I couldn't white knuckle it. I only had so much willpower, and all of you out there too, you only have so much willpower, and to try to white knuckle it, to try to resist it, is only going to last a few days. So for those of you out there saying that, well, I can usually stick with my diet for 3 or 4 days, or maybe some of you can hang on for a week or two, and then you cave, fall off the wagon, whatever term you want to use, that is because you were white knuckling it. That is because you were doing a lot of willpower and resisting, and that will never work, ever. So the other thing that's not going to work for this sugar and carb addiction is to try to uncover your past or to try to seek out counseling for that purpose. I'm not saying counseling or therapy is not useful. I'm just saying you don't need that in order to overcome a carb or sugar addiction. You don't need to dig into your past. And so basically what I did was I took all of that information, I took all of the information that I have about hormones, because hormones are also a part in this addiction. So we have like the physical hormone side of things, and then we also have the emotional kind of dependency. And so I kind of combined everything together. I had a lot of great mentors too that helped me and taught me a lot about the addiction part of things. And so that is what I started to use when I was working on myself. And my goal was I wanted carbs and sugar to be a non-issue. That is what I wanted. I wanted to stop thinking about them, obsessing about them, feeling like I needed them. And I wanted just no drama and no emotion around it. I didn't want to crave it. So basically what I wanted was, if you think about when you go out to dinner and you, there might be a pretty centerpiece in the middle of the table. If you think about it, yeah, you might notice it. It's pretty, the centerpiece is there, but it's not an issue. And you may look at it once or twice and then notice that it's there and that it's pretty, and then you don't think about it again the rest of dinner. It's just sitting there, and there's no emotion around it, and you don't need to keep looking at it. You don't need to keep obsessing about it. That's how I wanted to be with carbs and sugar. And so with different techniques and tools that I used, I can happily say that I completely have got to that point. So now when I go out to dinner, or if I'm at a social event, or maybe I'm going to a buffet, the carbs and the sugar are like a centerpiece. I have no emotion around it. It sits there, and it's just there. And I usually forget about it. I may notice that a waiter or waitress brings out a bread basket, and I'll look at it and I'll notice it, and then I forget about it. And it's such an awesome, freeing thing. I don't have to white knuckle my way through anything. I don't have to use willpower. It's so freeing, and it is possible. And I know for some of you, it may sound like, this is ridiculous, this lady's crazy, I can't relate to her, but I promise it's true. So if you are out there and you think you can't live your life without your sugar or your carb, I promise that you can, and it doesn't have to be so painful. The steps that I take you through to get to that point are very, very simple. They're very simple. Are they difficult? It may take you out of your comfort zone a little bit, but it's absolutely doable. So that's what I wanted to say to you guys today. I wanted to give you encouragement that you can get to that place where you have no emotion around carbs and sugar. So what I've noticed is that there is kind of a spectrum of carb and sugar addiction. So some people need to just kind of cut out the real sugar and processed carbs, and they're fine, and they're able to kind of overcome things. And then there's some people on the spectrum, which I feel like I am, where they need to cut out basically all carbs and sugar. So I'm talking about even the carbs and sugar that you might find in fruit. And because some people, even when they keep fruit and other high starchy, maybe vegetables in their diet, that's still enough to kind of keep that dopamine hit a little bit too high. So for me, I don't eat fruit, and I don't eat any carbs, honestly. I don't even remember. I can't even tell you the last time I had a carb. So I basically am zero carb all the time. I can't even remember. The last time I had any carb was maybe a couple months ago. I had an avocado and a salad. So the lettuce probably had some carbs in it. and I feel amazing. You don't need carbs and sugar in order to thrive. You really don't. So for me and for the severity of my cravings, I cut out all carbs. If the thought of that is triggering you, or the thought of that is making you feel a little nervous, then that is definitely something you need to explore in your life. So, and I promise I can get you to the other side and it will absolutely change your life. And not only will you lose the weight effortlessly, you will lose all of the weight effortlessly. You can get to whatever weight you want to get to. I promise you can. So not only will that part happen, but you will also start living your life, because you aren't checking out through the exit door all the time with food. And so you can start evolving as a person instead of staying just stuck where you are. So many people are stuck with their evolvement because they're checking out all the time. Hey Charmaine, being carnivore, do you find that you ever crave vegetables, or does that go away too? I don't crave vegetables. Nope. That completely goes away too. And the last time I had carbs was, like I said, it was a few months ago. I had an avocado and I wasn't even craving it. It was there, and I thought, oh, I haven't had an avocado in a while. I didn't have any emotion or craving around it. I just thought, oh, I'm going to have some. And I had some and it was fine, but it wasn't any sort of dopamine hit or anything. So you will find that the cravings go away. Now, depending on the person and depending on how dependent they are on the carbs and sugar, it could take as much as six to 8 weeks to really see those cravings go down. But everybody will start to see a difference within just 2 or 3 days. But the full cravings may take up to 6 to 8 weeks, depending on the person. Some people feel like a week or 2 is all they need. So really good question. As I was saying, you really start to evolve as a person when you cut out this addiction that you have. And a lot of people kind of turn their cheek and they say, no, I don't have an addiction. I just have a sweet tooth, and it doesn't affect any area of my life. It's just me and my own thing, and it doesn't ripple out into other areas of their life. But when they start eliminating those things, they will see how huge of an impact those carbs and sugar were actually having on every area of their life, with the relationship with their spouse, the relationship with their kids, how they show up at work, how they feel about themselves, their self-confidence. It was all wrapped up in this carb and sugar addiction. And so it is my passion to spread my word to you, to everybody out there, that if you can relate to this, you may need to look at carbs and sugar more like drugs and alcohol, and then things will start to make sense, and things will start to shed light on why you can't stick with your diet plan, why you can't lose the weight. So if like I said, if this rings a bell to you, but maybe it's overwhelming, that is where I can come in, because I can lay everything out for you in a step-by-step process to take all of the overwhelm out of it. And I can answer all of your questions. And if you have any symptoms, or if you're feeling physically this way or emotionally this way, I can help you with all of that. So that's what I do when I work with women one-on-one. And that's the reason that I can't just you can't just rely on my videos, or I can't just send you a bunch of videos and tell you to work on this, because it's very individualized and it's very one-on-one. Like I said, some people, all they need to do is cut out the sugar and the processed carbs, but some people need to cut out everything, like the fruit and some of the vegetables too, or some people go kind of to the far extreme, which is what I do. And that is, I only eat meat. I do the carnivore thing right now because that works for me, and it keeps me extremely alert and lean, and I'm at my ideal weight. I don't know if I'll be carnivore forever, but for now it is completely what works for me, and I have zero cravings and no emotion around food. You can set plate of cupcakes in front of me right now, and it would be no different than if it was just a bouquet of flowers. I have no emotion around it. I can look at it and admire it, but any drama or emotion or craving to eat it is absolutely gone. So anybody else have any questions? This is your time to ask. And if you want more information about working with me, or if you just have any questions about this sort of thing, the whole kind of addiction thing, please let me know. I have tons of knowledge, and I can help you out. So what you can do is you can either comment below this video, or you can private message me on Facebook, or if you want to just schedule a time to chat with me on the phone, I can put up my calendar. I haven't posted my calendar or my schedule yet, but you can just click on my schedule, set up a time to talk with me, and that is, I think that's about everything I had today. If anybody has any more questions, like I said, please let me know. I'm trying to see if I missed any, maybe, I don't know. But okay, I think that's it. Thank you so much for listening, and I will be back soon. And like I said, let me know if you have any questions. Okay, all right, we'll see you later.